Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking, and this is Retreat to Darkmoor. Retreat to Darkmoor is a game for 2 to 4 people, in which each person plays the role of an evil overlord who has sent their giant army of evil minions to attack this, like, bastion of good, if you will, this city of wonder. But the problem is that when each of you got all of your minions, your army there, what happened was that basically, all the good legendary heroes of the land had decided to take that moment to have like a convention or basically meet at that city. And so, like, they show up, they realize they're going to get their butts kicked, and so now they're hightailing it out of there and trying to retreat to Darkmoor. And so along the way, what's going to happen is that you are going to play cards out of your hand. You have a hand of, like, your minions, and each person has the exact same deck, and you're going to be playing these minions as they're racing to these different locations in Darkmoor where they will be safe. But once a line of minions who are racing, like a group of them, are racing to escape, what happens is that like the legendary hero, one of them will, jump out and they'll kill a minion. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that your minions aren't killed by the legendary heroes. And you're also trying to make sure that, like, you basically screw up with other people and make their minions die. And also there's ways for your minions to kind of have conflict and also fight as well. And if you manage to kill the other evil overlord's minions, that actually is good. You get points for that, and you get points for controlling the spots in Darkmoor when you get back there, and you get points for every creature that you save, and so on and so forth. So this is a fun, fantastic little game. I'm going to show you how to play it, and then we'll come back here and I'll talk more about the Retreat to Darkmoor. Alright, this is Retreat to Darkmoor. I'm going to be showing you a 3-player game. You can tell it's 3 players because there are 3 player decks over here, and there is also 4 locations that your minions are going to be running to. Now, the player decks normally would not all be in a row down on one side of the table. Each person would have that deck in front of them. All those decks are exactly the same, but I just put them all down there so I can actually show you how to play the game. Just keep that in mind. You'll also notice that there are 4 locations. The number of locations that your minions will be escaping to will always be the number of players plus 1. So with 2 you'd have 3, 3 you'd have 4, and 4 you'd have 5. You also get plenty of these. Even with the maximum number, you're still getting lots of these locations, and they are double-sided, which adds a lot to the variability of the game. You can randomly pick which side is going to be used, and also you can never count on, like, the same spots being available, so the game is going to be different each time you play. Over here you have your deck of legendary heroes. The legendary heroes are the ones that will be attacking the minion lines once their peril limitation has been met. Each minion will have a peril rating and kind of like their nastiness or how much attention they'll draw. And that can be artificially changed with these peril tokens. I'll explain that in just a little bit. But once that peril strength is met in one of these lines that is over here, the legendary hero will kill the last minion in line, and then the rest of the minions escape and get to the other side of the board over here, and then you draw the next legendary hero. Now, just like with the different locations, you get plenty of these legendary heroes, so you can't always count on a certain legendary hero to be available or going to be there in the deck, even with the maximum number of players. Something that I really like about the game because of the fact that once you played any game, several times, you kind of learn all the different cards, you learn the different abilities and things like that. And so when you can't count on certain heroes being present or what have you, it really adds to the challenge of the game. These are the victory point tokens, pretty straightforward. You'll be earning those as you play the game, but that is not the only way you earn victory point tokens. You will, or victory points, I should say. You earn victory points for, like, getting your minions to safety, or having the most power, or the most, like, kind of like an area control situation at these different locations after the game is over. So the game is pretty simple. What happens is that each person's going to start, and they're going to draw 5. They're going to shuffle up their decks, and they're going to draw 5 cards off the top of their deck. And that will be their opening hand. And the rules of this game are exceedingly simple. On your turn, you play a card, and you determine whether or not the legendary hero jumps out and attacks anybody, and then if they don't, then you kind of resolve your entire turn and the next person goes. And by resolving a turn, each of these minions will have, well, no, I shouldn't say each of them. Some of them have special powers. Things like guys like the Dire Bear just don't. You know, they have a type of creature they have over here with like a little bat there that's an animal, and there's the 4 victory points on the bottom there that it is going to be you know, worth if you manage to get him to safety. And then you'll also see that like he has a peril rating of 1. Now you notice that the backs of these cards is brown, and also the bottom here is brown, and whereas like with the red cards, the back is red and the bottom here is red. So you can always tell whose hero is whose, if you will. So it isn't, even though you all have the same cards, they aren't different. So some of these things have special powers, like the Changeling. This little icon here says he's a humanoid, and then you can see that he has 0 peril. And then he has an ongoing effect. So ongoing effects are just that. They're ongoing. When they're placed onto the board, they will just continue to be processed. So in this case, the ongoing, if Changeling is in the Horde at the start of its owner's turn, discard the Changeling and play a minion from your hand in its place. Now, this is the Horde, just so you know. You will have different lines for the Horde, but that is the Horde. So just you keep in mind what the terminology means. So, you know, you're just going to pick one of these cards and you're going to place it down, like Charging Minotaur, ongoing. After the legendary hero attacks this horde, defeat the adjacent minion with the highest victory point value. So, like, this is a situation where you could kill another person's minion, but sometimes you'll end up killing your own just because you have to kill the adjacent minion, which might end up being your own. So, by adjacent, this is kind of one of those cool things. Now, a lot of games I played have lines. So, you'll place, like, things like this, and you'll have different cards in these rows, and then you'll say adjacent. Oh, okay, it's, you know, so if this guy, you know, was here, these would be adjacent. However, in this game, if you had a situation like this, these are adjacent. So, you know, whereas like I played games where you have a line and you're kind of adjusting the cards along those lines due to the situations. So, but this is one of those games I've never played it like this before, where as you're building out these lines from left to right, you are actually having like adjacency up and down as well. Now, a diagonal is still not considered adjacent. You have to go orthogonally, but that's how that works. So, like, just like your other different powers you have, I mean, the Drake Legend doesn't really have a power, but like, Skeletal Warrior has an immediate power. An immediate power is just that. You immediately take that action. Skeletal Warrior may be played in front of any minion in a horde. So, like, basically this guy can budge in the line. Now, just so you know, just a couple of things. So, like, if you budge in the line, like, let's say, you know, you could, let's say, budge right here. So you want to, you know, like, get in front of, you know, the ancient mummy or whatever. And you did that on purpose because maybe the legendary hero is going to come out and kill like this line or whatever. So, and then let's just put another guy back here just for situation. And actually, this works because it's 1 + 3. Actually, you know what? Here, this works perfectly, actually. I apologize. If you go here and you see the Inquisitor Polonius, they tell you what they are. They're a Crusader, and they have a 6, like, their threshold for when they are going to attack is a 6 on the peril. So it's ongoing. During the draw step, players draw up to 4 cards instead of 5. So it's just a special power. And, like, normally at the end of your deck, in your turn, if you have less than 5 cards, you draw up to 5. So this one has the ability of lowering how many cards you get to have in your hand. So it's just kind of a jerk. But in this situation, maybe, you know, this lumbering troll was placed there. And so you, for whatever reason, Lord knows why, because it's probably not a really good choice by the person that is in charge of, you know, this particular room. But you go 1, and then there's 4 peril, 6 peril. The legendary hero now, the threshold's met, and they will kill the last person in the line, like so. And so then this would go back to the green's discard pile. And then these 2 minions would get to go over here. But when everything in this game is that you have to check and make sure that you're not triggering some other effect. Like, in this case, the Charging Minotaur will kill something. Or you know, certain cards will be like, you know, when you move them over, you know, there's different actions, different abilities, like different things that happen whenever, like, the status of the game changes. So, in this case, so we said ongoing, after the legendary hero attacks this horde, so this line of the horde, defeat the adjacent minion with the highest victory point value. So, we have here, we have a 2 victory points, we have a 2 victory point, and we have a 3 victory point. So, he would kill that one, and then the charging Minotaur would be the only one that makes it to safety on the other side. And so, you know, that's how that mechanism works. Now, so then you go ahead and you discard that legendary hero, and because they've done their one attack, they've, you know, satisfied their peril or whatever, the one thing they wanted to destroy, and you turn the next card over, and now we have Vort the Purified is a priest ongoing. Add 1 peril token to any like undead, that's an undead minion, after it's played. So, in this situation, what happens there is, and now this isn't necessarily a bad thing, remember, because of the fact that, like, you're using these reactions, these things, you're well aware of it, and so you're using that to your advantage, you know, as far as, like, trying to put the different cards in the right places that are going to affect certain actions or whatever. So, here's a Dracolich, it has a 2 peril, so he has an 8 as far as his you know, his limitation, or I'm sorry, his threshold to that. So you could, you know, put this down, but because you're going to add 1, you're going to go ahead and put that peril token on the Dracolich to artificially increase its peril, because obviously Vort hates the undead because he's a priest. So there you go. So so that's how the game goes. I mean, as I said, you draw back up, you draw your cards back up to the 5, or in case there's a different situation, like with that Crusader, you only get to 4, and then each person is going to take a turn. You do that until you empty out this deck. Once you've gotten done with that deck and there's no legendary heroes, that's going to trigger the end game, and then you're going to figure out the victory points for each situation. Whenever you manage to kill another person's minion, you get a 2 victory point tokens. So that is something that is added to it. Sometimes you'll put victory point tokens on certain minions, so they're worth more when they're actually escaping. And so that's another way you get the victory point tokens. After the game is done, you will then determine like who has the control over these locations that are like the safe havens, if you will. You determine that by totaling up the peril value of each monster that made it to the other side, and then, you know, whoever has the highest peril value of monsters that are safe in that location will win the victory points that is located on that particular card. If there is a tie, nobody gets it. There's no, like, splitting it down the middle. There's no tiebreaker. Just nobody gets the victory points for that particular location, which is something I like, actually. That's kind of cool. Then you total up all the minions in the safe haven, I said, and then all of your tokens, and whoever has the most victory points will then win the game. If you happen to tie there, as far as, like, the tied player who would have taken the next turn wins. So, like, remember, you as soon as this is done, there's no, like, one last turn, everybody gets one more try. No, the game's over, but if you have a tie, then the next person who would have gone, that is a tied player, will win the game. Now, I should mention that each one of these locations can have an ability as well. So, like, here's the Sinister Academy ongoing. After playing a minion in this horde, you draw a card and then place a card at the bottom of your deck. So you can kind of, like, shuffle through cards and find something you like. Some of them have things like, after playing a humanoid minion in this horde, a player of your choice places 2 random cards in their hand at the bottom of the deck and then draws 2 cards. There's a way you can mess with somebody if you're doing it. And then some of them have, like, a final scoring value where the highest victory point value minions do not count towards the control of this location. So, you know, like, yeah, you might have gotten some high victory point guys to the other side of the safe haven in the Veil of Terror, but they're not going to help you towards controlling them at the end. So there's all kinds of stuff like that, all kinds of little variable powers, little variable scoring mechanisms, things like that, that all come together into a relatively light game, but like this is a puzzle game. This is figuring out how to mess with the other players as much as possible, but also putting yourself in the best position to get the most victory points and win the game. And I'm always impressed by games that have all these different powers and different abilities, because I can't even imagine what it takes to, you know, like, make sure that all of this stuff is like on par with each other and nothing's overpowered, and, you know, it all works together well. But I'll talk more about that in my conclusion, which I'll do right now. Alright, so that is Retreat to Darkmoor. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay portion of this video, and I think you should have a pretty good idea of how to play the game. It doesn't really do the game justice, though, because I can't really show you all of those minion cards. I mean, each of these is a rather large deck of cards with tons of different little creatures that have tons of different little powers and what have you. And so, like, being able to actually, like, show you all those powers and all those abilities is really difficult. And the same goes for all the different locations, and the same goes for all the legendary heroes and what have you. But suffice it to say, all of these little powers and effects are very variable and very, you know, they're common to a theme. You know, they're all about, you know, the basic mechanism, which is building these horde lines, but they all have different effects and different things going on. And this is one of those games that I really, really enjoy because of the fact that, you know, well, for one, there's no iconography. I mean, I understand that, like, when you're looking for language-independent games that like, you like iconography in these, but this is a game where, like, basically you look at the card and it tells you right there. That's what it does. You know, and it's just, like, it isn't one of those things where you're like, wait a minute, so it has 2 arrows and a line through a square. What does that do again? You know, and so you're looking through the rule book to figure out what the 2, you know, I understand you can figure those out eventually, but I love the fact that I can put this game in front of people, and once I just tell them the different terminology, this is a line, this is a horde, things like that, it's like the card just tells you what it does. So from a pure, like design value, I really appreciate what this game does. Now, beyond that, so, like, to the point where the actual gameplay and how much fun it is, this is just a fun game. It's like, because the whole game, you know, unless you're doing different effects, different, like, creatures that do different things, what you're basically doing is you're trying to, like, put your monsters into these little lines to like, use their powers or use their peril to get as close as you can to the threshold of that hero popping out and killing somebody without going over. Because, you know, when you put your hero down, obviously you're putting them in, well, peril, because of the fact that it's very possible that the hero will come out and attack them if somebody's able to adjust the line and do such a thing. But one of the things you can do in this game is that if you can somehow get your monsters, like, into a situation where either you can spring a trap, like with that changeling, like, that's the beginning, and then it gets all the way around to you, and like, you get, and somebody else has put somebody behind that line, you can swap out that changeling for another monster with a higher peril rating, obviously, that then triggers that hero, you know, to come out and kill whatever somebody else put in that line. But also, you can have a situation where, if, like, say the peril rating is 7, and if you have one that's at 6, one that's at 6, one that's at 5, and one that's at 6, and you have a monster that has a peril rating of 1, and you just put it right down that one that has 5, the next player, they might be have a little tough decision on their hands because of the fact that each one of those, no matter what line they put their creature in, because they have to put one down, what they have to, like, you know, push it above that threshold. And so that's where the little puzzle, like, you're forcing the other players, it's kind of like, you know, shoving them across over the cliff, if you will, in a way, you know, just metaphorically. So, I mean, because of that, and because of just, like, all the different, like, things going on, the theme, I love the theme. I mean, I dig games where you're the bad guy, you know, and you're trying to, you know, race against, you know, like, the other players, you know, like the classic line of, I don't have to, you know, I don't have to be fast, I just have to be faster than you know, that kind of thing. And so you have to make sure that you put your monsters in the best possible spots. And also, because of the fact that everybody has the exact same kind of monsters, you have a situation where, kind of like Libertalia, you know, not exactly, but, you know, kind of like the same aspect where, you know, the other players have those same abilities, those same powers. And so, you know, something like a monster's ability, like that Minotaur, that, like, really helped you out a lot, you know, somebody else's Minotaur might just bite you on the butt just as bad, you know. So I dig the fact that, like, each person has functionally the same options at you know, available to them. Now, I mean, obviously it isn't necessarily going to be at the same time or ever, because of the fact that the game is over after a certain trigger. There isn't something where everybody gets to go through with their entire deck. But, you know, the fact is that, you know, it's quite possible that you will get to the point where you will actually, you know, see a fair majority of the cards that are in your hand. So, you know, like I said, I can't imagine designing a game like this with all these different powers, all these different things going on, and making sure that it's all balanced and works. So my kudos to the designers. You know, it's flat out fun. If you're looking for a game that, you know, it's the small box game. It's that kind of. It's not really a filler. This is kind of like a tweener filler. You know, it's because the game does last a little bit longer than that classic 15 to 20 minute filler length. But if you're looking for a game where, you know, it's like you can teach it in about 5 minutes, and it got an engaging theme. It has direct player conflict. You know, you are, you know, beating each other up, trying to be the best at your. This isn't a garden game, if you will. You know, I think you're really, really going to enjoy this. I mean, the artwork's amazing. The mechanically, the game is sound, and it's just a fun time. So there you go. That is Retreat to Darkmoor. My box is down there. I can't grab it right now. But if you have any questions about it, please ask away. I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, I am the Undead Viking, and I'm telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.